Well, hello and welcome, everybody. I am so glad that you're here with us today. We'll be waiting just a few moments while folks trickle in from the waiting room to begin our session for the day. But we are just thrilled that you're taking time out of your day to learn a little bit more about this very important topic that I'll be introducing in just a moment. But for those of you who have not engaged with Forte before and who I haven't met before, hello, it's nice to meet you. My name is Libby Davis, and I'm a program manager here for the MBA programs team. So I'm just thrilled to be engaging with all of you today. So with that, I know we have a limited time together, and I want to make sure we can make the most of it. So I'm going to officially welcome you to our B School short course session today titled Leveraging the Power of Social and Social Media. This is a super interesting topic. I'm really excited to learn more about it today, and I hope you are too. So this is a part of one of our virtual event series that we have here at Forte, which really brings together industry experts and faculty from our partner schools. So we're really grateful to be partnering with HEC Paris on this session today. So with that, I would love to introduce our school partner, again from HEC Paris. Her name is Colleen Stanfa. She's the Associate Director of Marketing for the Executive MBA program. So she's actually going to join us for a bit to tell us a little bit more about the programs available at this academic institution before introducing our featured speaker today. So Colleen, it's wonderful to have you here today, and feel free to take it away.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Libby. Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for being here today. As Libby said, my name is Colleen. I'm the Associate Director of Marketing for the EMBA program at HEC and also a lead for the Triumph Global Executive MBA. I'm so excited to participate in this B School short course. We have a really great session in store, but before we get started, just wanted to share a few words about HEC. We're currently ranked as the #1 business school in Europe by the Financial Times. So if you've heard of HEC but aren't really sure, hopefully this will give you kind of a teaser into what our school is all about. We're a very old French institution. We were founded even before the Eiffel Tower was built. So what's crazy is that today we offer a really wide array of program options with a highly international student body. So started as a very French school, but today super international. Over 120 nationalities on campus every year. Our portfolio of programs is vast, but today I'm going to focus specifically on our MBA program portfolio. So share a little bit about each one. Again, I'm going to go really fast, but just to kind of highlight some of the main things about each one. The full-time MBA program at HEC, it is an incredible MBA program. It lasts for 16 months, which is quite unique, and you can start every year in September or January. The full-time MBA, it's perfect for anyone who's looking to expand their global network, transform their careers, or kind of just explore their career options. Typically in an MBA class, you have over 60 nationalities at HEC and 94% of students come from outside of France. So it is truly one of the most global experiences that you can find. The average work experience in the MBA is 6 years. Again, if you're looking at these numbers and you're not quite sure, I don't know if this is right for me, our teams are here to help guide you and help you understand if the program could be great for you. We're really proud because in our most recent intake, we had the highest number of women ever in the full-time program, 40% women. So that's an all-time record for us. Still working really hard to bring more women into our program, but just know that that's really important to us at HEC. Moving on to the Executive MBA. So the EMBA at HEC, it's an equally diverse and exciting program, but it's delivered in a part-time format. So this program can be taken from anywhere in the world. We have students fly in from Singapore, Canada, Peru, New Zealand, and beyond in order to come for classes every 2 to 3 months. The EMBA has several start dates throughout the year. So in September, January, February, and March, actually. So we have a March intake coming up in just a few weeks. What's maybe interesting to know is that we also had a record number of women in our recent January intake at a high of 35% women. So of course, that's not really satisfactory for us, but we're super happy that we were able to welcome so many executive women into that program. And then just another final word on the Triumph Global Executive MBA. This is a really cool program, which is delivered by 3 leading global institutions. So HEC Paris, the London School of Economics, and then New York University. What's great about this program is that it's a truly global experience in terms of where you study. So you have different modules. It's also part-time, but different modules that are delivered in London, New York, Paris, Seoul, Nairobi, and Dubai. The Dubai module is going on right now, actually. And a deadline coming up also for the Triumph program next week. So let us know if you're interested and we can definitely put you in touch with the right team. whatever program may interest you. So, take a look at these. You can get in touch with me directly. You have my contact details on the screen, stampha@hec.fr. If you scan the QR code on the screen, you can also be redirected to an introductory form. So that will connect you directly to our teams, and then we can kind of go from there to funnel you to the right program. So really excited to be here, excited to hopefully get to know some of you better. And with that, I'm just really happy to now introduce our featured speaker. So I'm really pleased to talk to you today a little bit about our amazing featured speaker, Christine DeValk. So Dr. Christine DeValk is the Dean of Degree Programs at HEC. Dr. DeValk is a professor of marketing, and her research and teaching focus on how the internet and social media have changed consumer behavior, organizations, and marketing practice. This year, Dr. DeValk celebrates 20 years at HEC, where she's held various positions, including Marketing PhD Director, Marketing Department Chair, Associate Dean and Director of the PhD Program, and Academic Director of the Caring Influential Luxury Chair. She celebrates world-renowned companies, so she works with companies like Air France, KLM, Balenciaga, BNP Paribas, Disneyland Paris, ATEM Group, Gucci, Renault, SEB, SFR, and others. You can read her works in countless academic journals like the British Journal of Management, the Journal of Interactive Marketing, the Journal of Public Policy and Marketing, and more, as well as in various edited books. She has won awards for her research, including the prestigious Citations of Excellence Award. She's a prominent leader in her field, a leader at HEC, and a true subject matter expert. So if you're here today, clearly you have a keen interest in marketing or social media. So we're really lucky to have the opportunity to learn directly from Dr. DeValk herself. I'd again like to thank our partners at Forte for collaborating with us on this short course, and of course to you, Dr. DeValk, for giving your time and bringing your expertise to today's session. With that, I will conclude and turn the mic over to Dr. DeValk.
Yes, thank you so much, both to Libby and to Colleen for these wonderful introductions. Hello, everybody. It's my real pleasure to be here with you today. Thank you really for Forte for the opportunity to give this masterclass. In my current role, I don't do a whole lot of teaching, so I cherish this opportunity to, in 25 minutes, to put as much content that I could get, expertise around my topic. So let me start sharing my screen and get us started. Here we go. So the title of today's session is important. I know a lot about social media, but I believe that currently lots of companies are not really leveraging that social aspect that we have in social media. And that is a pity, because that is really what makes social media so different from mass media. So I want to start telling us a little bit about the history of the internet, to understand that the internet, by its inception, has been very, very social. Because most people would believe that social media started with the invention of Facebook, now 20 years old, but that is not really the case. So do you know who this person is? It is a character from a television series. Do you know which television series, and what is this character? You can put your answers in the Q&A. Yes. The person that we see here, if you may know, it's Don Draper from the television series Mad Men. Mad Men stands for Madison Avenue. And Madison Avenue is the avenue in New York, where in the 1950s and 60s were located all these big advertising agencies. So for me, Don Draper is really illustrative of how marketing and selling was done before social media started. And you see him sitting there with his smug face, and he is creating the dreams that he is putting in this mass media, and convincing us to buy the products that he is making advertisements for. Now, when the internet started, this really changed a lot. And the internet started a long time ago in the 60s with an experiment that was run by the United States Department of Defense, their Advanced Research Project Agency. It was also in the 60s where there was the risk of a nuclear attack, and they wanted to create a communication system that would allow different parts of the country to continue to communicate in case the regular telephone communication lines would be destroyed. So this is how the ARPANET started. However, quite soon, when this network got introduced, people started to use it for other purposes than just, communication purposes, professional communication purposes. So the ARPANET got connected by universities, by the United States Defense Department, and by a couple of big companies like IBM and AT&T. And the very first email list that started in the 1972, so 3 years after the start, was Science Fiction Lovers, an email list with people that were working in these companies or at these campuses, and that were sharing with each other information, tips about science fiction books and movies. We could call this the earlier communities of practice. Important that the ARPANET was reserved to people who were part of these companies, who were studying at certain universities, or were part of the United States Defense Department. The Usenet got created as an alternative network where computer hobbyists were connecting on the internet with one another. And there too, it was the idea of email lists that people started to use to send messages about main topics, such as alternative talks, such as news, such as computers, such as recreation. And there too, one of the first Usenet groups, that is how we would call it, was around chess. So the use of these early internet or networks that were connecting disparate groups of people in the United States, but also in Europe, because these networks quickly started to connect with one another, was about sharing information, giving each other tips, celebrating shared passions. So we didn't really see any business use of this yet. In the 1980s, many more people could afford to have a computer at home. And also at that point in time in the 80s, the prices of modems dropped. I don't know how old you are. As you just heard, I'm 20 years at HEC, so I will not tell you how old I am. But I remember still vividly when I was a little girl at home, when we would be using the modem, that is how it would be connecting to the telephone communication line. And when everybody, or where many people started to have a computer at home and an opportunity thus to connect, there was yet another form of email list and what we call bulletin board systems that got introduced. It was again the same idea. Here I have an example of a bulletin board system that became very big in France, where HEC is located, where young mothers wanted to share, or are still sharing actually, the community still exists, tips about their pregnancies and about dealing with their young babies. So yet another way where people were connecting around communities of interest, around topics where they wanted to share information each other. Very social, very support-oriented, information sharing-oriented. Today, we can think that a community like Discord, that many of you may be familiar with, is really still very much based on this old idea of the bulletin board systems that started in the 80s. Another way of communicating on the internet was introduced in the 80s. It's these multi-user dungeons, the computer games, let's say, that moved online. And here you see a screenshot of how this would look like really early on. It was very much text-based. And if we would look at that today, we see a community like Twitch, which is still echoing this live gaming, live co-creating together, recreating online. So we see a little bit of an evolution in the times of recreation that people engage with online, from support communities, information sharing, celebrating passions, to also gaming and playing together online with these multi-user dungeons. And then the final form, also introducing more towards the end of the 80s, a different way of connecting, which was extremely social, were the chat rooms. And if we would think about that, something like Clubhouse is still very much leveraging this early idea of having an instantaneous way, a synchronous, instantaneous way of connecting with one another. And I think it's important that we remind ourselves that many of these apps, applications that are popular today have their origins a long time ago. If we look further in the development of the internet, a very important development was the creation of the World Wide Web as a navigation system onto all these disparate networks that started to grow together into this one big internet. The World Wide Web is a navigation system that made it even easier for anybody to connect and to find information, and thus also to find other people online. With the introduction of the World Wide Web, it was at that point in time that companies really started to be interested in the internet. And we see it here in this little timeline where we see the introduction of Yahoo, Amazon, and eBay in the early 90s, let's say, 3-4 years after the World Wide Web had started to take off and further created this world, this online connected world out there. So Yahoo as a portal helping people to find information online. And it was at that point in time that Amazon and eBay started to say, okay, we can also use this network to sell. It is thus at that point in time where the internet moved from being a very social place to a place where we have a much more commercial mindset. We can use this place to sell stuff. Now, very important further development here is that around 2004, indeed the time that Facebook got introduced, this made it very easy for anybody to produce content in various formats, photos and all this kind of stuff. And then we really see this evolution and this explosion of different kinds of applications, websites, communities. But many of those continue to have this idea of connecting people with each other, to have them share their information, celebrate passions, support each other. With, of course, these last decade, a real mobile revolution, and which has further, let's say, emphasized everything that is image-based. Thus, Time magazine, that you maybe know every year elects a person of the year. In 2006, it wasn't, you know, a Barack Obama or an important businessman or woman. It was us. It was all of us, regular people, that were elected people of the year, because with this introduction of this democratization, further democratization of social media platforms, made it so much easier for everybody to connect and talk to each other. So here we really see this social aspect. Now, if we then think about companies that at the end of the 90s started to smell, let's say, the commercial possibilities of what the internet could mean. In 2006, between 2006 and 2010, they were a bit destabilized because social media were so much present and companies didn't know exactly how to communicate with people in that domain. But quite quickly, they started to take, you know, control again. And keeping that mindset of Don Draper, I think many marketers, I'm sorry, I am a professor of marketing, so it's partly my responsibility that we haven't necessarily been able to change that mindset of many marketers that remain a bit in the Don Draper mindset, where they want to keep the control and send that message to an audience, and where social media, I believe, has increasingly be simply used as another mass media channel rather than the social aspect that we have seen so much in the beginning, and that for me makes it such a powerful network. So what I believe is, if you want to use social media right, there is let's say 4 big strategies, and I believe as a company you should use all 4. We go back to what marketing should be doing, right? Marketing should be, on the one hand, attracting people, customers. You need to make people aware of your brand, and you need to make people want to buy your brand or your MBA degree, for example. And then as a brand, you also want to retain them. You want to make sure that they come back and they continue to buy your brand. Now, on social media, if you think about mass media, let me put it like this, it is only the company that is talking to the consumers. However, on social media, you have this opportunity to leverage consumers doing the talking for you, consumers talking amongst each other, the word of mouth, which indeed companies try to exploit on social media. Although I believe that lots of companies, what they're pretty much now are doing is just communicating with the idea to create brand awareness and attracting people. We would call this in another way content marketing, right? Pushing content through social media channels, hoping that people will become aware of your brand and like it. But that is not enough. Communication is not enough. If you only do that, you underestimate this power of word of mouth of consumers that share and talk on your behalf, and also by doing so can attract lots of consumers. Now that is one part of the journey, let's say. What lots of companies have done is they have turned to social media to provide care, right? Customer care. You have, for example, I worked, as Colleen said, with Air France KLM. They would have social media channels where people can get information about delayed flights, not fries, delayed flights, and ask questions to customer salespeople. As we see, we really look at the history of the internet. What made the internet so powerful was the communal aspect of it, and the fact that early on science fiction lovers, the very first community online, brought people together that really had this deep sharing of topical information, but most often also a sharing of a very important social link. And that, I think, in many social media strategies have become perhaps a little bit undersnowed and less used. So, as I say, many companies focus on a content marketing strategy, a communication strategy. Now, the difficulty with that is this, you have these companies that are on Facebook, on Instagram, on Snapchat, on whatever, all the platforms that we have, where they talk about themselves. They are Don Draper. They talk about my brand, my new product development, and all this kind of stuff. And typically that doesn't fit so well with the mindset with which consumers go to social media, where they want to hang out, share with like-minded others. Now, a very important, let's say, a period for me where I took a lot of inspiration and where I was a little bit hoping that companies understood how to do social media differently was during the COVID crisis. At that point in time, you understand that lots of companies were not necessarily been able to sell that many, or retail, let's say retail outlets where people couldn't go out and go buy stuff. So they kind of needed to be a bit more creative in how they use social media. And Kantar Media does lots of research, and during COVID they did this monitor where they tried to figure out what it was that people were looking for in terms of what they were looking for from brands during the COVID crisis. And actually, this can just extrapolate to what consumers may be looking for even today. It is not just in a crisis. People look for rational support or information. People look for emotional support or social contact. And you can take an element where you focus that more on a person individually, or where you can really try to use social media for the social aspect of it. And the company did that very well during this COVID crisis is Starbucks. So I have an example of what they did in their Twitter account, where you see really an example of each of these strategies. So the first two, federate to overcome and support to entertain, these are aimed at emotional support. The first one, millions more Americans could face hunger, right? They're making kind of an emotional appeal with a collective element to it. Donate some money so that we can help feed America. It has nothing to do with Starbucks really, but it was tapping into what consumers found important, what was on their mind. The second one is different. It is an emotional call that was very much resonating with what lots of people were feeling at that moment in time. Open a window, call a loved one, drink a coffee out of your favorite mug. We've got this. You remember how it felt like when we were all stuck at home, we couldn't go out. Here again, they make a reference to coffee, of course, but it's not really about Starbucks. They're not telling us this is our new product. If we look at the other two on the right side of the screen, this is really much more rational support. Obviously, okay, you cannot go to your regular Starbucks chain you cannot go to your regular Starbucks. So now you need to make coffee at home, and we're going to help you how to make a coffee that looks like the Starbucks coffee that you typically would buy. And the final one is indeed, okay, now let's look a little bit what's going on. And we're not only talking about the COVID crisis, but we tell you a little bit about how we're ensuring the future that will be better than what we're currently living. So here it is a very nice example of a brand that is using its social media account to not really only just talk about themselves, but tap into what is on people's mind. And I think if you want to be social, that is where it starts, right? You need to understand what is the need, what are people's needs. What we can still say about the example that we just saw is that it is still Starbucks that is talking to you, right? They're talking to us. So it is still content marketing that is maybe considered valuable, but it is not yet really tapping into that second strategy, which is having consumers talk on your behalf. So another example from the COVID crisis is this one from Burger King. And I love Burger King as an example of a company that has really understand how you can use social media. We're back in the COVID crisis, where many of us found ourselves stuck at home and we needed to work from home. And you remember how that felt like when we were all discovering Zoom and Teams and all these platforms, and where we had to find a background, right? Because all of us were sitting there in our kitchens, in our living rooms, in our bedrooms. We had our spouses, our kids, our cats, our dogs walking in the screen. So we needed to have something else. And Burger King tapped into what was going on at that moment, right? What was on everybody's mind is, okay, we need to find a background, a wallpaper. And they said, okay, you know what? No one is out in the street. No one can see the regular advertisement. So let's try to use this and do some kind of get people talking and thinking about Burger King by this way. And they say, get a free Whopper if you put a picture of a Burger King billboard as your video conferencing background. I think it is a fantastic way of tapping into having consumers talk through you, right? And tapping into what is on people's mind at that moment. Now, again, the difficulty that we would have in lots of social media platforms is that there is so many conversations going on. So now, if you're a brand and consumers are going there and they're chatting with each other and stuff like this, how do you leverage? How do you insert yourself in this ongoing conversation? There I have another good example of IKEA, which is again a company that is using social media quite well. Maybe you remember at the US last president election a long time ago, there was Bernie Sanders. And Bernie Sanders at the inauguration was sitting there. You see here this little picture on his chair with his little mittens. And people thought it was, with his mask and everything, it's endearing, right? He is endearing. He's sitting there. He was attending. He was cold. And so people started to, what happened on the internet is these memes. People started to say, oh, I made a website where you can put Bernie in places you can Google Maps Street View. So you have lots and lots, thousands of people that use this and put him in the Duke Chilling Park, that put him in a scene of the Game of Thrones, that insert him in a scene of a comedy series, right? And then IKEA, because lots of people were also talking about this idea, oh, Bernie Sanders, get the look. And so IKEA did exactly that. IKEA said, all these people are talking about Bernie Sanders. How can we connect our brand to that ongoing conversation? Well, I hope many of you may be aware of IKEA. So they say, you can buy the Condon folding chair, you can pair the Vardagen oven cloth, and here you have IKEA linking themselves, inserting themselves in this ongoing conversation. And having consumers thus sharing this because they found it funny. Now, this is not the first time that IKEA did it. I have other examples. IKEA figured out that the television series Games of Thrones were using their rugs as props. You know, the actors that we see running in the ice and stuff like this, they have IKEA rugs. And obviously they say, oh, this is a fantastic insight that we can use, because many people were talking about Games of Thrones in communities, on social media, spoiling, whatever, fan communities. So they put a couple of their employees, put the rocks. And again, as you see, this was picked up by consumers that all started to make pictures of themselves with their own IKEA rocks. So bingo, IKEA, people talked about themselves through IKEA. Another example from IKEA. Colleen said that I'm working with Kering. I am the academic director of the Kering Influential Luxury Chair at HEC. So indeed, I work with the Kering brands, and Balenciaga is one of those. Well, the Balenciaga designer, when he was a student, he was using a lot the IKEA bag. And he thought, becoming a designer at Balenciaga, okay, I can use that icon that everybody knows is IKEA bag to make it into a very fancy Balenciaga bag that sells for over $2,000. There, IKEA, again, they thought, okay, this is interesting. So let's leverage this and let's insert everybody talking about Balenciaga introducing this bag and selling it for so much money, right? You can imagine how many communities, social websites were talking about that. Consumers were talking about this. And IKEA then plays with this idea that, in luxury, it's lots of counterfeit. And they say, well, the actual bag, it's this one. And how can you identify an original bag? And thus, you see, they also ask people, well, why don't you, what is your style? How do you show us pictures of you wearing, or how you, style yourself with this IKEA bag? You have many people participating into that. So both Burger King and IKEA leverage the principles of spreadable content and this idea of, or the DNA really of what the internet was about, is people want to connect to one another, and people want to, when they do so, often show off in all these communities, discussion forums, chat rooms. I've observed many of them for all the research that I've done. People want to show off how much they know, how better they are than someone else. Often they also simply want to show who they are. This is me, these are my questions, can I connect with you, can you give me some feedback, express to which group they belong, because in the internet it's also a lot about this. We are this color, someone else is this other color. I like IKEA, someone else likes another brand. So we have this way of people organizing each other around groups. And again, also what makes spreadable content is what we just said. We see that there is Game of Thrones. Lots of people are talking about that. Of course, elections are moments where people are talking about it. So anything that is happening in the world makes that people have a need to discuss to each other and discuss it. So people turn to social media to give meanings to world happenings. And if we would think about what spreadable content is, all these principles of spreadable content are leveraged in what we see in all these challenges, and that we see a lot on TikTok. TikTok is a platform that is leveraging these ideas of challenges, and that leverages this idea of spreadable content and leveraging the social aspect. So again, we're back at the COVID, where we have all these people sitting at home and not knowing what to do. We have a group of girlfriends in the Netherlands, actually, I'm from the Netherlands, that started a game amongst each other. They say, okay, you pick a painting, a famous painting, and you take 3 items in your house, and you interpret that painting, you make a picture of yourself. So here you see one of these first examples of it. And that became a big meme, a big viral phenomenon on the internet, where all these people were doing that. And with this example, you see exactly this idea that consumers can pick items that belong to them, that say something about who they are. By interpreting a painting, they can maybe perhaps show off, because maybe they do it better or nicer than someone else. They can, and the fact that this was happening at COVID was again meaningful, right? All of us stuck in our house using items that we had around us, helped people to connect with one another. So this is really what is happening with TikTok challenges a lot, where people are able to take a prompt and then adapt it to themselves. Spreadable content needs to be something that people can adapt it to who they are, and they can show something of themselves in it, because that makes that consumers talk to each other. That makes that consumers are willing to share with one another, and that makes that there is a connection. And that is really what social media is about, that people connect with one another. They're not just consuming. And I know that is a bit counterintuitive why I say, because today's social media is a lot about data. We're looking on our phones, and we're swiping away, and it's a lot consumption mode. That is because lots of these platforms have forced us into that kind of mode. But the origins of the internet wasn't that, and the origins of social media wasn't that. It was really about people connecting to one another. And there is many opportunities, many ways in which brands can still do that. And I propose, I hope that with this webinar, I hope that I contribute a bit to that I open your eyes to the idea that don't be just Don Draper. You have all these other media channels where you can do it, but open yourself up to the idea, what can social media really bring? And social media, it's a way of having people connect to each other and talk to each other. So what we need to remember for this webinar is, if you want to leverage the power of social and social media, it shouldn't be just about your company and about your achievements. Think about the mindset with which consumers come to these social platforms and offer something of value that they can engage with. Also think not just talking to, but talking with. And you can do that by asking questions, like IKEA that says, so how would you wear this bag, right? Then you get something going and you leverage the social aspect. And finally, really keep in mind that consumers are really not so interested in talking about you. They're interested in talking perhaps through you. Think about Burger King. Think about IKEA with the rocks. It's not about IKEA. It's about you showing the rock. But by doing that, you do leverage, or IKEA is benefiting from you leveraging that. So I think I'm out of time, and I want to keep time for questions. So I know that Colleen will manage that. Colleen, I'm all for the audience. Tell me which kind of questions I can still answer.
Amazing. Yes. Thank you so much, Dr. Giselle. This is such a great session, and there's some pretty interesting questions that have come through. So I'm going to start kind of working through these, and then, of course, if you do have any other questions, our audience members, you're more than welcome to continue to send those in through the Q&A box. Question about niche marketing. An interesting question. How do you view the growth of niche marketing instead of using big influencing brands to maybe start to use more niche users to speak to a specific audience?
Yeah, that is indeed a very interesting development. And indeed, I think more in line with how we actually would leverage the power of social media. So if we think about influencers, I could have done another 30 hours talk about that, because there's a lot to say about influencers as well. And indeed, lots of companies have worked with big influencers, again, with this Don Draper idea, right? If you have a big influencer, you reach a big audience. However, if you work with smaller influencers, that does connect with perhaps smaller niche audiences around a particular topic, what you get there is this social connection. Because if you have a niche influencer with a smaller group of people, highly likely this influencer will know personally many of the people that are in their community, right? And that is, if you think about word of mouth, if we go back to the theory about word of mouth, if we go back to what we know about how people influence one another, it's expertise, of course, but it is also a lot that social connection. So I think companies have started to understand that perhaps it's better to work with 10 smaller influencers rather than one big one, because you may reach the same volume, but you add to it this social connection, which is important. So good question. You got it. You're not Don Draper.
Amazing. Thanks so much. I think I had a little bit of an echo without my headphones, so I added my headphones and hopefully it's
much
better now.
Yes.
Amazing. Okay, great.
Yes.
Sorry about that. A question here about more about pop culture. So this guest asks about her organization that struggles with the legality of using pop culture moments or celebrities in their social media. So do you have any recommendations on how to how to avoid those issues or move forward with those kind of cultural ideas that are relevant but maybe sensitive?
Exactly. Okay, that is also a fantastic question. I'm not sure I have a magic answer to it, huh? Because indeed it is. Maybe the answer is again just this: really, when you do social media and when you do marketing, you need to deeply know your audience. You need to deeply know your brand, and you need to deeply know the platforms on which you're active. Lots of marketers would treat social media as I say, Instagram, that it will be like Twitter or whatever. They don't necessarily think about the specificities of these platforms and the specificities of the audiences and the mindsets that you have. So if you are social, you listen. Okay, it starts with that. Social means starting with listening and understanding what's going on, understanding what what conversations are going on and how those conversations may echo with the audiences that you want to reach. Now, of course, because it is on social media and it may be public, it may be true that what you want to say to your audience may be picked up by other audiences and thus still create tensions. So then I have a whole course around how you deal with social media crisis, but I don't think we have time for that today. But listening in, understanding your audiences, understanding how you can connect pop culture to really what is meaningful to them is a starting point.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for that. Another question, and maybe you have maybe an inside example that you can share about this, but a question from another guest here. So asking about the intention of a brand to seed a crazy idea, right? So like something that really goes viral. Is that done intentionally? Does that happen by accident? How much is the brand acting in that kind of viral impact when they do something a bit crazy?
There's different ways to answer it, right? So if in my regular course deck, I have a slide where it says, don't try to create viral videos, because, indeed, researchers haven't necessarily cracked the code for it. So a company that tries to figure out what is that goes viral, I don't think there is an actual answer to it. Although we do have some research that says, what will people share? So people share stuff that is more emotional, people that share stuff that is more video, but it's very generality. So I don't think it really helps us a lot. And indeed, if you would think about it's really more, again, starting with listening and tapping into what's happening. A very famous early example is how is it called? I forget the brand. Maybe you will help me. You find it. It was at the Super Bowl in the United States, where many years ago there was an electrical shortcut, and so it went blank. And then there is this brand. How is it? The cookies. It doesn't matter. Indeed, there is a company that leveraged it because they had a whole team. So it was prepared. They had a whole team that was, anyway, the Super Bowl is a big event, right? So their social media teams were present. They had also the right people in place to validate any kind of suggestions, and they had this power outage, and the brand directly managed to put out something that makes a nice reference to that, but in particular also leverage this idea that I think the power outage was 20 minutes. So what do people do in 20 minutes? What do all of us do? We take our phone, right? We take our phone and we start to talk with everybody else. And after 5 minutes, you have to ask them, oh, what are you eating? What are you doing? And then we need to do something. And then they came with this funny reference to it. So everybody was sharing that. So it is true that there's an element of luck, an element of having social media war rooms, or having people in your teams that are very constantly on the lookout, like IKEA. No, IKEA, I showed you 3 examples, so that's not luck. They have people that are searching the internet. Oreos, thank you. Yes, that's what it is. Thank you, Oreos. It was the cookie. I know. They did it. So Oreo had this war room, let's say, a team that was all there and that could leverage that, and many brands that leverage these things, do that. Now, if I still may, because then you would say a lot of brands don't necessarily have the means to do that. Okay, obviously there is lots of events that we can predict, like you know probably that we will have the Olympic Games here in France. So we know that since a couple of years, so you can plan ahead that there will be a lot of chatter going on, and you can think ahead of how you could come up with some kind of content that may be useful to insert and to get people, get this social chatter going on the internet. Okay, one or two more questions. No, I don't know. I think we're out of time. So
Yeah, I think we're out of time. If there's unanswered questions, we can collect those, of course, and then send a follow-up. But I think we have to stop there. But Christine, thank you so much for being here for the session. And thanks to our audience. There's lots of chatter going on here about David and Victoria Beckham, Stanley, lots of different things. So I think you hit a nerve there with the Super
you all
Bowl
need to
talk.
come to HEC and you can take my course.
Thanks so much. I'll turn it back over to our partners at Forte. Thanks a lot.
Oh my gosh, that was such a great session. I loved learning everything that you were sharing, Dr. DeValk, and really fun to I didn't even know some of those moments happened, but I was like in the midst of them, especially all the Game of Thrones and IKEA stuff. I was like, how did I not know this was happening? So thank you for opening my eyes. But with that, I just want to thank all of you for being here today and for sharing your thoughtful questions. It really makes this conversation so deep and meaningful. We're just thrilled that y'all have been here today. So once again, a big thank you to our partners here at HEC Paris. We're thrilled to be able to be here with y'all today. And just to let everybody know that there are lots of these fantastic events that happen quite frequently at Forte. B-School Short Course is a great series, and just to know that you have access to this recording and many others on the Forte Library. So with that, I want to say once again, thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you all really soon. Thanks, everybody.